The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Magi had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled. "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious. He ordered the massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity, 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had ascertained from the Magi. Then was fulfilled what had been said through Jeremiah the prophet. A voice was heard in Ramah, sobbing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled, since they were no more. The Gospel of the Lord. Through the words of the gospel. As soon as we work away. So today we celebrate the feast of the Holy Innocents, and our hearts are drawn to this tragic story from Matthew's Gospel. King Herod was driven by fear of losing his power, and as a reaction to the fear that he had, he orders the massacre of innocent children in Bethlehem, all in vain glory, all in vain attempt to eliminate the Christ child. These infants, though totally unaware of their sacrifice, they became the first martyrs of the church. The Feast of the Holy Innocents invites us today to reflect on the sanctity of life, especially the lives of the most vulnerable. In Herod's cruelty, we see the tragic consequences of a culture of fear. You know what fear stands for? It is an acronym: future evidence appearing real. It's not real until it actually happens. But it appearing real, that's why Jesus says so many times, do not be afraid, because fear can make us do horrible things. He knows this. Herod's cruelty was just out of a culture of fear, and it was out of self-interest and disregard for the dignity of human life. Sadly, this disregard for life is not confined to ancient times. It echoes today in countless ways. We see this through the selfish mistreatment of the unborn through abortion. We see this in the elderly. We see this in the marginalized of society and all who are powerless. The church's teaching reminds us that life is sacred, and that sacredness is from the conception to death. This belief calls us to be protectors in life in every stage of the human journey. First, it calls us to protect life at its beginning. Like the Holy Innocents, the unborn are among the most defenseless in our world. They have no voice. As Christians, we're called to uphold the dignity and advocate for a society that nurtures mothers, nurtures fathers, respects families, ensuring that every child is welcomed into this world with love and care. Second, protecting life in all its vulnerabilities. Just as the children in Bethlehem suffered violence, many today suffer neglect through abuse and exploitation. Children living in poverty, refugees fleeing in war, victims of human trafficking, pornography. All these are a disrespect for life, and all this reminds us of our call to stand against injustice and to be voices for those who cannot speak for themselves. Third, protecting life in aging and illness. Our faith calls us to honor the elderly. In fact, one of the only commandment that comes with the promise is honor your father and your mother, and you will have a long life. Those who are sick or dying, we are called to help them in a world that sometimes values people based on their productivity. We are reminded that each person, regardless of age or ability, bears the image and likeness of God. And just think about the wonderful gift that my father-in-law was to us when he lived with us toward the end of his life, and how close that he and I got. And I think about my own parents, who my mom just passed away in June. And the elderly sometimes can feel like they're a burden to their children, but they actually are such a gift to each one of us. They have a value and should not ever feel like a burden. They are a gift to us. Fourth, we need to protect life in all creation. Finally, this feast challenges us to protect the life in our planet. Care for our creation is an extension of our respect for life. It just makes me sick when I see driving, somebody throwing something out the window. We need to be models of respecting our planet, things that we do to our water, things that we do all for the sake of just prosperity. When we are stewards of the earth well, we ensure a future for our future generations to come. In celebrating the Holy Innocents, we remember not only their sacrifice, but it calls us to remember Christ's ultimate victory over the forces of death. And so we remember those lives that did not make it through full term, through miscarriage, or when we remember those infants that just couldn't pull through their infancy in death. Jesus, who was spared from Herod's wrath, would grow in his life, he would give his life for all of humanity. His resurrection assures us that life, not death, has the final word. And Jesus grew through his family that nurtured his faith. We're called to be parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles that help the younger generations to grow in their faith by our example. Let us honor the Holy Innocents by recommitting ourselves to building a culture of life. This means that we are called to take concrete steps to protect the vulnerable, from advocating for pro-life policies to accompanying the lonely, from providing for the poor to ensuring the dignity of the elderly. May we, like the Holy Family, trust in God's guidance and courageously protect life at every stage. In our opening prayer today, in the collect, Father prayed this prayer. He said that the faith in which we confess with our lips may also speak through our manner of life. Through the intercession of the Holy Innocents, May our hearts be transformed to see Christ in the vulnerable and to act with love, justice, and mercy. Amen.